Morning, Adrian. Great to catch up again. This is one of our sort of regular catch-up chats here at the GEIC. But what I'd like to explore, I think we've known each other for nearly 9-10 years now when we first met in the National Graphene Institute. And really just how you're finding being a partner to the GEIC, both in terms of access to the facility, but also what you get from the relationship with the university.
In a word, credibility. So I'm the editor of a publishing company that produces a Nixon journal that analyses graphene and 2D materials worldwide, as you know. And we publish a journal every month, and it's 50 pages, and we've been doing that. We're in volume 9 now, and I'm just working on issue 5. On the one side, I could just be a guy with a few colleagues in a home office or in a basement somewhere, pattering on the keyboard, but I'm an affiliate and partner at the GEIC, which gives me massive amounts of credibility.
Have you seen a growth in interest around graphene and 2D materials in those 9 years?
Yeah, hugely. I mean, the big standout thing for me is, and we were talking about this a while ago, we looked at the investment that's gone into graphene 2020 to 2024, and that's $1.3 billion around the world.
And it's something I'm quite proud of. You look at some of our partners over the last 3-4 years, they've gone from raising £50,000 to do a demonstrator through to a potential unicorn, traveling around the world. And latest news, not only in Singapore, not in Saudi Arabia, but also now setting up operations in America and Singapore.
And you're talking about Vivek.
I know, it's incredible to see some of the progress, not just Vivek, but Vector Homes, Nanoplexus, Water Cycle, really starting to get that growth.
Definitely.
But in terms of the relationship, you mentioned a few things there in terms of credibility and value. Can you explain a bit more around that?
Sure, yeah. So because we're based at the GEIC, it means that we can talk to billion-dollar companies and on a peer basis. So we're talking almost like equals. And you know that after this meeting here, I've got a meeting with the head of materials for a global aerospace company talking about graphene. That would never happen if I was just sort of in a home office by myself somewhere. We invited the guys up here, what must be a year ago now, maybe a little bit longer, when we all met them in the boardroom. And they could see what you do here, what the GEIC does, how we fit in, and it just lifts everybody's credibility massively. So that's just a headline of.
It's interesting. We had one of our American partners recently said that they had an order from the American customer, but that order resulted from a meeting they held in the GEIC in Manchester. So again, that global reach is quite interesting in terms of reaching customers who you wouldn't reach normally.
It doesn't surprise me. I mean, there's all sorts of unexpected things. Like you mentioned Vivek, a chance meeting with some investors that we were talking to resulted in us introducing Vivek to the investor, and Vivek got his first $1 million to get started, and that all happened here at the GEIC.
So there's real value for connection. Any other ways you see value? You don't just do the journal, you do some work as well in terms of business.
Yeah, we do. Well, this week I've got a meeting with the chief exec of a textiles company, and that is a consultancy piece that we're doing that you're well aware of, that we probably can't talk publicly about at the moment, but it's graphene in composites, and the textile company is using it in a very innovative way. We brought together a GEIC graphene manufacturer who's a partner here, and we've pulled in the textile manufacturer, and there's a project that's kicked off to actively put graphene into a production environment. And this is real world, real benefits products that's coming out. Again, that could not have happened without the sort of the convening space that you have here.
And in terms of delivery as well, does it support the delivery of projects?
Definitely, yes. We've been involved in other projects, again with composites, in an aerospace field, and we've basically been able to show an aerospace company the fact that you guys have got probably some of the world's experts in graphene composites here, and you can just, one of the problems that people don't realise is it's not just about adding graphene to a polymer, as you well know, it's how you actually mix that and blend it in. If you just throw graphene in, it doesn't work necessarily, or it works intermittently, which is even worse. Here, your guys downstairs in the labs are world class at actually blending graphene in, making sure this works properly, and they've got the industrial experience behind the scenes to actually give even more credibility.
Again, I had a great example recently. One of our startups said he didn't think he was a startup because you had access to all the capital, the facility, the know-how of the ecosystem here in Manchester, which included the GEIC. But it also included all the other partners who they could meet on a regular basis.
I mean, we just had a conversation a few minutes before we came to this room with a company that's putting graphene into concrete, and they've created railway sleepers. I think you can say it's concretine. And we already know, we can't talk publicly about the results yet, but we already know that the results that they've got are really impressive, double-digit improvements in performance.
What I like about the GEIC is not just these fireside chats, but also the kitchen chats, where you find out what's taking place with all of our partners, both internationally, locally, from concrete to space to growing plants and tomatoes here in the GEIC. There's never a common day. In terms of that value, how do you value that in terms of monetary? Can you put any monetary value to that, or Definitely. Is that difficult?
No, it was difficult until we looked at it. And when you think about it from the point of view of a startup company, so you're coming in with a great idea, maybe from a university or maybe from outside, and you've got to find a laboratory. And it's not just any lab. You've got to have all the supplies. You've got to have the filtration equipment. You've got to have clean space. It's got to be secure as well. You've got to have an awful access to a lot of equipment as well. Things like electron microscopes, Raman spectrometers, stuff like that. These things don't come cheap. If you had to sort of piece together all that for yourself, then we reckon minimum £300,000 a year, and you get that. More than that probably by being a partner at the GEIC,
which costs normally 50k a year. So 6 times the value just on cost, as well as all the other network and other connections that you can value as well.
Right, we're not including all the network stuff. That's just the hard numbers. That is hiring the building, getting access to the kit, having time from the staff. But no, the biggest, possibly the biggest intangible benefit is the fact that you get to meet people who've been there, done that as well. Not necessarily competing against you, but doing parallel work. And those informal conversations, like you were saying in the canteen, they're just priceless. You couldn't put a number on it.
It's something we're trying to work on. We call it the GEIC core IP. And that's almost the conversations you have with myself or with the Chief Scientific Officer. Welcome to Cinzia, our new Chief Scientific Officer. Who's joined us recently. She'll bring a whole new dimension, I think, to that for chemistry and also 2D materials. But I think also the value from John Whitaker and Phil Hurst on operations, who really understand not necessarily how to do things, but also what not to do and how to do things safely, which is really important as well, both for us and for our partners.
I've been around since the GEIC opened, and what is it now? 6 years?
Gosh, it's in our 6th year of operation now, yes.
Yeah, and I've seen these guys operate, so it's not just looking at people's CVs. I've watched them day on day and seen how they operate. They are real world-class experts. They're friendly, they're professional, they do stuff, and other people can talk about stuff, but you guys actually deliver. That's a big difference.
So what next for Nixene, Adrian? It's been 8-9 years. It's always something new. You're always on top of that next wave of exciting things. From my side, it's electronics. I think I'm going to see some real changes over the next few years, but anything new from yourself that you see coming along?
Yeah, I'd agree with you about the electronics. So we've got the company in Netherlands and Germany who've got the photonics interconnects on chips. So they're using graphene to translate light into electricity and back again. And that's, something like 250 million euros Series A funding to get started. They've just bought a graphene CBD manufacturer in the Netherlands. So I think I agree with you there. Electronics is going to be good. I would say a slow burn, but probably the biggest one would be graphene in concrete. Mainly because the work you did a few years ago, looking at is it 0.01% graphene sprinkled into concrete, you get 30% improvement in strength, and then you've got all the life cycle benefits and the carbon neutrality stuff going on as well.
Yeah, I react a little bit because I think we're learning it's not as simple as sprinkling in, but once you get that formulation and get that additive in the right way, we are seeing some good and consistent, which I think is a key change, because I think early days there was some variation in terms of performance, but now I'm seeing some really good consistency, which means we're a lot closer to certification and regulation, seeing real pause taking place.
And that's the big thing you guys do. You go from the academia to industry, and your perspective from, you've got an industrial background, you understand that things that people take for granted, like consistency, having the same material coming in day after day and having the same performance going out day after day is absolutely vital for industry. You don't want surprises.
And we have a key partnership with National Physical Laboratory, and I'm really pleased I see that growing and extending going forward. So we're in dialogue to see how we increase the presence of NPL staff here in Manchester, which I think will be key for the GEIC, but also for the northwest of England.
It's great with us as well. I mean, the NPL helped us with some work we were doing a while ago, and it was just a chance conversation in the canteen, as you know. And we found they managed to put us in touch with some radiation testing experts for a piece of consultancy work we were doing, which involved graphene again. We would never have known where to go for that if it hadn't been for that chance chat.
So just one final thing, and we often talk about this, but space. Space is one of those areas I see some real opportunity and interest. From simple applications. One of our partners just recently put a satellite in space. Another partner's talking about having space stations. What next for you, Adrian, on space, and what's happening later this year?
We are working on a number of things to do with space. You and I are just having a conversation with the UK Space Agency about presenting at the Space 2025 conference in Manchester, so that'll be good. I've just finished doing presentations at a conference in Korea on using graphene for one of the ultimate space applications, which is the space elevator. And we're looking into the very long term to see how this new material and how the way the manufacturing processes are accelerating could actually make something like this a reality in a few decades' time.
So I've always been cautious about the space elevator, but I'm actually seeing it really pushing the boundaries now of what could be achieved. So whilst I don't necessarily agree you can have an elevator, I'm actually seeing some real progress and traction, not just in space, but in many areas where those properties of graphene are starting to make that unique effect.
You're right there. And even if the space elevator never happens, on the way to making this, you're actually looking at making graphene, not as powders, but large area sheets of graphene laid on top of one another, tens of thousands, maybe millions of layers. You've got a new bulk material with absolutely astonishing properties that will drop out of that.
And that will be transformational.
That will be new industrial revolution.
Great stuff. Thank you for the chat, Adrian. Great to catch up again, and we'll keep these conversations going.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you, James. Thanks for the time.
Thank you.